Welcome to this special edition of Scottsdale Roundup. I'm Stephanie Tippett. Are you an animal lover? Well, then we have a show for you. Find out where you can adopt a new furry friend. Learn the signs of heat stress in your pet. Take a tour of this facility that cares for injured native birds. Get a new perspective of the world of reptiles. Hear the story of Maya the mountain lion. And finally, see the pooches' point of view at the ArtWalk. Stay tuned. We're chomping at the bit to tell you some great Scottsdale animal tales. Here we go. If you're in search of a new furry family member, look no further than the Maricopa County PetSmart Everyday Adoption Center at Miller and Camelback Roads.
Did you know there's an award-winning animal adoption center right here in your community? I'm Melissa Gable with Maricopa County Animal Care and Control, and I'd like to introduce you to our PetSmart Charities Everyday Adoption Center right here in Old Town Scottsdale. Our Everyday Adoption Center features adoptable dogs, cats, puppies, and kittens from Maricopa County Animal Care and Control. The animals that you'll see here are transported from our East Valley and West Valley Animal Care Centers. This adoption location adopts out more than 1,800 animals every single year and is one of PetSmart Charities' most successful everyday adoption centers.
One of my most rewarding experiences was the adoption of my pet Stanley. He's a 2-year-old golden retriever that I found in the Everyday Adoption Center. And like a lot of our pet parents that come to the store, nobody really realizes they're looking for their next pet until they come across one. And so we always make the comment that you never know what you're looking for until you find it. And Stanley was that for me. He was abandoned and I was fortunate enough to rescue him. And it just goes to show how many wonderful pets are in the shelters. As a leader in pet adoptions, PetSmart Charities is always looking for opportunities to find homes for pets. This gives the pets more exposure that they wouldn't necessarily get inside a shelter, and it also reduces the number of pets in overcrowded shelters.
The Everyday Adoption Center is a great place for those folks who want to adopt but who may be intimidated or overwhelmed by a larger animal shelter. Sometimes when there's hundreds of faces staring back at you, it's difficult to decide who to choose. But here we have fewer animals, and that actually makes it easier for potential adopters to connect with a specific dog or cat.
Working for MCC is a very rewarding experience, and I've had countless faces that I think of daily and make the job worthwhile. One in particular is actually a foster failure story of mine. And Henry came in. He's a little black puppy. He was an orphan puppy, bottle baby, maybe about 8-9 days old. And I was at work late, and he came in after hours. And the kennel staff came back and held up this little puppy and said, "We need a foster for it." And there was no one but me. So I was like, okay, crate him up and I'll take him home. And so I took this little booger home and fed him. And he was an angry eater. Oh, he would just, and so fed him and took care of him for, about 8 weeks. And then he went to one of our events and he went up for adoption. He wore his little superhero cape and he just looked phenomenal, and everybody took pictures with him and everybody oohed and awed over him, and nobody took him home. And then he went on TV and he was a superstar, and I'm not sure what he said in his dialogue, but apparently it did not win him any favors because he went up for adoption again and nobody took him home. And I came to pick him up because I'm a big baby at my fosters, so I have to get him because they can't stay overnight. And I came to pick him up and he was curled in a little ball, shivering, and he looked over his little leg at me with just eyes, and I was done. So I called up the next day and said, "He's not coming back, he's staying." And that's how I came to have a 5-month-old puppy right now named Henry, with crazy hair, googly eyes, silly ears, and he's just ridiculous.
One advantage to being located inside of a PetSmart store is that we have access to their customers. Our staff and volunteers often walk the adoptable dogs through the store and introduce them to shoppers. This helps potential adopters see what an animal would be like outside of a kennel environment. We are always in need of volunteers at our PetSmart Charities Everyday Adoption Center. It's a good alternative for folks who want to help but are worried that the shelter environment might be too difficult for them.
The most frequently asked questions that potential adopters ask me have to do with the animal's behavior or the history of them, whether or not they're good with other dogs and cats, how long they've been here, if they've had any medical conditions, which is really great because you want to make sure that they're as right for the pet just as much as the pet is right for them. There have definitely been animals that I've gotten attached to while they've been here, and that just makes me more determined to get them a good home. And it's really special when they get adopted because this animal that you have shared a bond with is now going home with someone who has that bond with them as well.
For more information on volunteering at our Everyday Adoption Center or to see the adoptable animals at our shelters, visit our website at maricopa.gov/pets, or you can give us a call at 602-506-7387.
Heat stress is a danger not only to you, but to your pets too. Learn the signs and what you can do to avoid it.
Hi, I'm Claire Miller with the McDowell Sonoran Preserve here in the city of Scottsdale. Scottsdale is so proud to have this wonderful resource, and we have approximately 120 miles of trails for people to come out and hike. And we receive somewhere between 300,000 and 400,000 visitors from all over the city, all over the state, and all over the country to come and enjoy these trails. We want people to come out and use these trails and enjoy the preserve in the natural desert, but we want people to do it safely.
I'm Tim Cooper with Scottsdale Fire Department. Unfortunately, many of our visitors who do come out to enjoy our trails encounter medical emergencies. Heat-related emergencies are one of our most common, particularly as the summer begins to warm up, and it involves both our humans and their canine companions. Children, elderly, obese, and individuals with certain medical conditions are at higher risk for emergencies. If you notice yourself or someone suffering from extreme thirst or muscle cramps, take precautions immediately before symptoms worsen. Drink water and get into a cool location. Try to cool off with wet cloths. If you notice a person that begins to suffer with headache, nausea, or begins to show confusion, irrational behavior, call 911 immediately.
Many of the hikers that come here to the preserve bring their dogs along. They're certainly welcome to come out here as long as they're always on a leash and you pick up after them, but you need to really pay close attention to your dogs as well. They're just as susceptible to the heat, sometimes even more so, because they're low to the ground. It's a lot hotter closer to the ground than it is a couple of feet up off the ground. So you need to be mindful of the dogs and how hot they can get, how quickly. So you want to make sure you have enough water for them, you keep them cool, and keep an eye on them. So if they're trying to stop at any shade that they find on the trail, they're trying to tell you that they're tired and they're hot and they need to have a break.
Keep an eye on your pets while you're hiking and try to be aware of any signs of a heat emergency involving your canine friend. End your hike quickly if you notice that your canine friend is panting heavily, having difficulty breathing. If his tongue and gums start appearing bright red with thick saliva, you need to begin cooling your dog. Call for help and get the dog off the trail if your dog vomits, becomes unsteady, becomes lethargic, unwilling to move. Heat stroke begins if his lips become blue-gray, and then collapse, seizure, and unconsciousness are following. Death can be imminent with a canine due to this heat emergency. If your dog does suffer a heat emergency during a hike, please get your dog to a vet immediately. Heat emergencies can cause system failures in dogs, heart irregularities, and kidney failure. It's important that he be seen by a vet to ensure that none of this occurs later on.
And actually, even before that, do the best you can to prevent a situation like this from happening from the start. We always think of it in terms of it. If it's predictable, it's preventable. So know how the temperatures are going to be that particular day. Be aware, and if it's going to be hot for you, it's going to be even hotter for your dog. And think in terms of making sure that you have enough water for yourself and for your dog. Some water for them to drink, and a lot of times I like to squirt water on the dog to help cool them off from the outside in. Another good thing to have is those little protective booties that you can put on their feet that can keep a layer of insulation between the hot trails and their dog's feet. So think in terms like that, where you can predict a situation, you can prevent a situation. So try to keep everybody safe, you and your dog.
And remember that a dog can't tell you when he's having a problem. You have to look for the signs that your canine's in trouble.
They're so loyal, they'll go with you and just go until the end. And they just want to go along and they want to be a loyal friend to you. But you need to make sure that they're your responsibility because they can't tell you that they're in trouble. You need to help take care of them as well, so they can go hike another day.
If you find yourself having a medical emergency during your hike, use your cell phone, call 911 immediately. Try to give as much detailed information as to where you started your hike, what last trail markers you were at, and about how long you've been on the trail. Stay on the line with the operator until she tells you to disconnect. And remember, if you're an hour back on the trail, rescue crews are going to take an hour to get to you. So try to prevent an emergency before it happens.
And if you'd like more information about hiking safety or the trails in the McDowell Sonoran Preserve, feel free to visit our website, which is www.scottsdaleaz.gov/preserve.
Up next is a tour of Liberty Wildlife, where injured eagles, hawks, and owls get a new lease on life.
Today we're at Liberty Wildlife. We are a wildlife rehabilitation and education foundation located in Scottsdale, Arizona. We've been in operation since 1980, so we're celebrating actually in 1981, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary this year. We have been providing wildlife rehabilitation for the city and the state since the early 80s. We do usually about 3,500 to 4,000 animals a year as far as wildlife rehabilitation. Along with that, we discovered early on that the best thing for us to be able to do would be able to educate people not to hurt animals or not to have negative impact with them, which is why we get 95% of the animals that we take in. So we created an education group. I think today you'll probably see some of these people getting ready to go out and do educational programs or training animals that we have enlisted into our educational program. The educational animals that you'll see are animals that came in for rehab, but for some reason their injuries were so great they were able to be rehabbed and live, but they were not able to be released back into the wild. So we use them in our educational programming. We go into schools, we go to community events with the intent of allowing people to see what our wildlife neighbors look like up close and personal. The majority of animals we do are birds, and that's because that's what people find. You know, the larger birds survive their injuries and people find them if they're hiking, they find them in their backyard, they find them in their pools. Right now we're dealing with a lot of orphans. Every time the wind blows or a storm comes through this time of year, babies blow out of nests, and people are desperate to find help for them. No one wants to sit and watch a baby die on the sidewalk. So they bring them into us, and we care for them with the intent of releasing them back in the wild. And we have about a 50-55% increase rate of release back into the wild. We have we're driven by our volunteers. We're a volunteer-driven organization. Probably 350 volunteers across the state make this organization work. They are the ones that allow us to do 4,000 animals a year and provide 450 educational programs free of charge. Volunteers come to us from all walks of life. We have barbers, we have doctors, we have lawyers, we have teachers, we have students, we have housewives, we have retirees. People come because they care and they want to get involved with something, and no one has to come with any training. We do all the training. Sometimes it's mentoring with somebody who's a old hand. For our education group and our medical services group, we actually have a training class that they go through after they've been here for a period of time. For our hotline, people can do the hotline from their home. If there's someone who just want to be involved but can't make it over here every day or once a week, they can do a 4-hour shift on the hotline, and that's what gets the animals to us. They are our lifeblood. We have a group of people who do rescue. They just go out and pick up animals that are larger animals that might be dangerous for the public to bring in. They're trained in how to do that. We have people who come in every day and do daily care. They feed the animals, they clean up for them, they do whatever needs to be done on a daily basis. We have our medical services group that come and administer medicine or whatever the protocol that the vets have given them. And they only have to be here for 4 hours a day, usually in the morning, and it's just once a week. So anyone can come in. If you can donate 4 hours a day, once a week, you can volunteer at Liberty Wildlife. We're headed now to see some of the foster parents. What happens if we have babies that come in, orphan babies that come in the spring, which is happening now, we found that the best way to raise them is to put them in with their own species. They don't imprint, An imprinted animal is a wasted resource. They cannot be released back into the wild. So what we found is you can take a tiny little baby great horned owl, tiny, tiny baby, and put it in with the parents, and the minute that little baby goes in, they jump down and pick up a mouse and run over and start to feed it. They're hardwired to do it, and they probably raise 70 to 80 great horned owl babies a year. They're just very, very good at their job. So we'll go down and see them. When people come in to feed these animals, they wear camo, so it breaks up the form of whatever's delivering it, and they basically don't, they don't talk. I can't see if there are any little bitty babies. I think there's a little bitty baby in the middle there. We have a wonderful website, www.libertywildlife.org, and on that website you can follow the buttons to how I can help or how can I get help, and there's a volunteer line, and then there's our hotline, and the hotline is 480-998-5550.
Here's a place where you can find some of the most venomous snakes in the world, right here in Scottsdale. Check it out.
My name is Russ Johnson. I'm the president of the Phoenix Herpetological Society, and we're here today at our Scottsdale Sanctuary. It is an educational sanctuary. We've got quite a number of very strange animals. We have 19 different species of crocodiles and alligators, which aren't supposed to be here. We have cobras, mambas, gaboon vipers. We've got some of the most exotic crocodiles in the world. So, from that standpoint, we've got quite a diversity of animals that you're not going to see anywhere else on display, and come to us for a variety of reasons. We're basically rehab them, give them a quality of life until they either find permanent homes or live out their life here at the facility. A lot of these animals that are here at PHS come to us in a variety of ways. Sometimes people come from other states where they've been legal and come here, and they brought in an animal that's illegal, such as a crocodilian or a venomous snake that is not from Arizona. So they either get confiscated by Game and Fish or the police department, or people voluntarily surrender them. We also get a large number of our animals that are pet trade items, and they either got too big to handle, they had no idea they were going to live this long. We have tortoises that'll live 150 years, snakes live 30 years, so a lot of impulse buying takes place, so we end up with a lot of pythons and boas and big lizards that people had no idea what they were getting into, so it creates an issue for them. All of a sudden the newness wears off that animal, and here they end up. Before they buy these animals, they need to do a little research, which is easy to do. They can even call us or go to our website, but they need to find out how long is it going to live, how big is it going to get, what is the special criteria for that specific species. Is it something to where they've got to create an environment that's going to be very difficult for them to maintain in Arizona. We have some tropical environments here that are very difficult to maintain, and it'd be hard to do on an individual basis, and it's also very costly. Every animal that is venomous that's not from Arizona is illegal to have in Arizona. So you can't bring a indigenous rattlesnake from another state to Arizona. You're breaking the law. We have non-native venomous snakes that come from outside the country. Those are against the law. One of the biggest ones that we see brought in are snapping turtles and alligators. Everybody thinks that cute little alligator is going to make a great pet, because it's chirping, ow, ow. It makes a real cute sound. Well, it grows a foot a year. Pretty soon you've got an animal that no longer fits in your bathtub and is big enough to remove your hands. On the venomous snakes, to give you an example, there's no anti-venom here. So if somebody's bit by a cobra, the closest place to get it is either Dallas or San Diego. By the time they fly it in, if you're still alive, you're going to be out on a ventilator and probably in a coma. Doesn't make any sense to expose yourself, children, or law enforcement to those kind of animals. We have a number of stories about our denizens here. Clem is a huge alligator out there, and he was released on the Arizona Strip when he was 16 inches long. He was up there for 20 years, and the guy finally sold his land to the BLM. And nobody had been out there for 4 or 5 years, and the BLM went to clear it up, and they came back to St. George and says, I'm not going back until you get rid of this alligator. So we were hired to go trap this guy. Well, he was almost starved to death by that time we trapped him. He was about 8'3", 20 years later, and he was about the size of a railroad tie, darn near starved to death. He's here now. He's 10.5 feet long. He's 450 pounds. He is a grouch, but he is a success story. You're talking about the epitome of survivor. This guy had everything going against him. It snowed, it froze up there, but the spring came out at 68 to 72 degrees and allowed him to live. PHS main emphasis is education. We do tours here. They're guided, unlike a lot of different places. It's not free roaming. You're taken with a tour guide, usually Daniel. The tour is going to take 2.5, 3 hours. You're going to go through, you're going to hear about all these different animals. We have some CITES animals here that are highly endangered. You're going to learn why that is. But a number of our pens are interactive. The people are going to go in the pens. They're going to feed tortoises. They're going to be able to hold some snakes. They're going to be able to hold some lizards. We go out and do a lot of schools. Last year we were in front of 150,000 students, which, you know, for an all-volunteer staff is really good. And that encompassed over 100 school visits. We do a number of corporates. We go to hotels and various other expos to display and basically provide information about the pluses and the minuses of having these animals. The community has embraced us very well. At first, you know, the idea of going out and interacting with a snake is not in the top 10 ideas of most people, but when they get here, there's a lot of empowerment with the knowledge we impart to them. So we find out that we get a lot of requests by word of mouth to different schools, different facilities, and we get people not only from Arizona, but they're referring people from out of state. We get people here out of state every year that come back and tour the facility because we're always having new exhibits on display. The community has been very supportive. PHS relies on public support, grants, things like this, volunteers. We have one paid employee and 1,500 animals, so it shows you the need is great. We have the need to have people come out here and help on a daily basis, Monday through Saturday. If people want to come out here and tour, they can either call the tour line, which is 480-513-4377, or go to phoenixherp.com. And they can get information there. You can even fill out a volunteer application on that website. You can donate to us. We go through tens of thousands of dollars worth of food monthly, okay? Any help we can get from the public is greatly appreciated, including your time, by going to the website, phoenixherp.com. It is a learning facility, so if you volunteer out here, you're not only going to get the personal fulfillment of helping these animals, but you're going to get to see animals you'd never have an opportunity to work with before in your life.
Southwest Wildlife Conservation Center rescues and rehabilitates wildlife and is a sanctuary to some who can't be released back into the wild. Here's Kim Carr with more.
Southwest Wildlife Conservation Center is a facility in Northeast Scottsdale that rescues and rehabilitates the larger native mammals. So we take care of things as small as skunks and raccoons, all the way up to black bears and mountain lions and everything in between. We receive animals from all different sources. Sometimes animals are injured or they're orphaned and the public will call us and then we'll go out and rescue those animals. And our goal is to make that animal healthy again so that it can go back to the wild. A lot of animals that we get are actually confiscated illegal pets. People think that they can make a bobcat or a coyote into a household pet, and they'll find them perhaps when they're young and take them home and think with enough love and attention they can domesticate these animals. Of course, that's not going to happen. You're going to get basically a wild animal that's lost its fear of people, and that can be very dangerous.
Maya! Maya girl! Maya girl! Come here! Maya! Get.
But we have a case where we have Maya the mountain lion, who was purchased by a woman here in Arizona from a breeder, and she basically just did kind of an online, send a mountain lion to my house. And when Maya arrived, she was a cub. Maya had her own bedroom and she lived amongst this woman and her children. And luckily Maya was at a young age where, she probably could have hurt the people, but she wasn't a full-grown mountain lion. But this woman would take Maya for a walk down the street, and luckily a neighbor at some point called the police and said, there is this woman walking a mountain lion down the road. So they came and knocked on the door. And luckily they did arrive at a time where the cats were young enough where they hadn't hurt anybody yet. So there was Maya, there were servals, there were other exotic cats. The woman was raising them, breeding them in her house with her young children. And certainly if Maya had continued to grow and become an adult mountain lion living amongst this family, it was just an accident waiting to happen. She did do some jail time because she was endangering the lives of her children. And you hear about it all the time, people that have owned a tiger since it was little and it was part of their family, and then eventually that tiger grew up and it killed the owner. And people just wonder, you know, where did that come from? Well, how could you not see that coming? There are some states, like I said, where it is legal. You can call up a breeder and purchase a mountain lion, and sometimes they'll even declaw these animals and take out their canine teeth, which is just basically mutilating the animal just so that we can try and make a pet out of it. Fortunately, Arizona has a lot of tough laws when it comes to wild animals as pets, so you're not allowed to have any wild animals as a pet here in Arizona. We do have some exotics. Every once in a while we will get something that doesn't belong here in Arizona. For instance, we have an African leopard, we have an Arctic wolf, we also have fennec foxes, which are from Africa. And those all are special circumstances and special stories. We try to just specialize in native mammals, but every once in a while we hear a sad story and we need to help. And we also are a holding facility for the Mexican gray wolf. They're actually the most endangered land mammal in all of the United States, and we hold 14 Mexican gray wolves here at our facility for the endangered breeding program. So these wolves, at some point, if they have offspring in the future, those pups, when they're old enough, might be able to be released back into the wild where they belong. So at Southwest Wildlife Conservation Center, there's many different ways to get involved. One of the ways is you can actually adopt one of the animals. Now that doesn't mean you get to take Leonardo home or one of the bears, but your donation helps us to care for these animals by buying food and medicine. There are different levels, so you might be able to receive a stuffed animal, a certificate, a picture, and you can feel really good about knowing that your money is going to go to helping one of these animals. You can come tour Southwest Wildlife and see all of our sanctuary animals. You can see black bears and mountain lions and bobcats and Leonardo the leopard, and all of those donations go directly to help care for the animals. We have a lot of schools that come by every year. Different classes will come for field trips and they'll learn about all the different animals. Gotta come get it. So as a nonprofit with hundreds of animals to care for, we rely heavily on donations and as well as volunteers. We only have a very small handful of paid staff, and then everybody else is a volunteer. So that's one way that people can get involved. They can contact us if they'd like to offer their skills here at Southwest Wildlife. And people can contact us for more information. They can go to our website, which is just southwestwildlife.org. There's a calendar section on there that tells about all of our upcoming events. We have full moon tours every month, which are a really neat way to experience the animals. You come at night with flashlights during the full moon and see what the animals are up to after dark. They are guided and they are by appointment only, so you would need to call our education line or go to our website, southwestwildlife.org, and set up an appointment for a guided tour. We do special events, we have bear events and different things. If people have an animal emergency, that's also another thing that we help with. We do have an emergency line, and you can call our main number, which is 480-471-9109, and all of that information and our phone numbers is on our website as well.
Finally, experience Scottsdale ArtWalk from a different point of view. Well, that's it for this special edition of Scottsdale Roundup. Didn't get enough? You can find more at the city's website, scottsdaleaz.gov. Look for quick links and click on Watch City Cable Channel 11. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel, Scottsdale AZ Gov. See you next time.